Every financial crisis, without exception, without any historical precedent we've encountered, follows that quiet, almost theatrical scenario that precedes everything collapsing. Mere hours or days after the first genuinely alarming news, a very specific type of person appears. You see them almost always on camera, generally speaking with aggressive confidence, moving with a false urgency, and always bolstered by graphics that give the impression of having emerged from a central bank briefing. Yet these graphics, upon closer inspection, are nothing but polished screenshots from whichever stock analysis platform currently sponsors them. The speaking style is very particular. It's the tone of someone who has discovered something terrible and enormous, overwhelmed by conscience, and has decided to tell you about it before it's too late. This character is not new, not a product of the internet or algorithms or smartphones. This person has appeared in every period of financial history and continues to appear. They sold pamphlets after the 1873 panic, broadcast on AM radio after Black Tuesday, attempting to instill something in the public. They published fax bulletins during the savings and loan crisis of the 1980s, and today they have a YouTube channel with a title written entirely in capital letters and a small red thumbnail. The reason this person reappears generation after generation, format after format, is not because they're particularly clever or particularly malicious. The demand for the product they're selling never decreases, and this product is not a stock tip, not a subscription, not a course. This product is the purchased comfort of being temporarily freed from a fear that they carefully constructed within you for 20 minutes, and when you step back and approach it with the cold analytical eye of a corporate fraud investigation, this is one of the most elegant and ruthless business models ever established in history. Because the raw material is free, capital is unnecessary. This person or these people feeding on financial devastation anxiety costs them nothing. They are always abundant, infinitely renewable. And whenever there is a genuine geopolitical crisis, an oil shock, a banking panic, a currency devaluation, this raw material is delivered to the algorithm in industrial quantities. The algorithm handles distribution for free, and what the algorithm rewards, regardless of which platform or which decade you examine it on, is not accuracy, not nuance, not a measured probabilistic assessment of macroeconomic risk. The algorithm rewards the emotion that keeps people watching, and that emotion, studied across every culture and income group, is fear. The feeling generated in those who watch or view these people is, more specifically, the fear of being someone who knew something bad was coming and did nothing about it. You can find videos like this and similar ones on my channel, and you can become aware of the people and systems that are exploiting your emotions. If you like this video, you can hit the like button, subscribe, enable notifications, and if there's a topic you'd like me to cover, you can mention it in the comments. Videos weaponized on fear follow such a consistent structure that you could set your watch by it. Here is the video strategy followed by channels where these videos are viewed. First, strongly establish that disaster is not merely possible, but certain and imminent and far larger than anything the mainstream media is telling you, because in this narrative the mainstream media is always either inadequate or complicit, always too slow or too beholden to corporate interest to tell you the real story. And this real story can only be learned from this channel. Second, divide your viewers into two camps: the uninformed masses who will be financially devastated, and the enlightened minority watching this video right now who still have a chance. And this division does tremendous psychological work, because it doesn't merely present information, it presents identity. It tells the viewer that through the mere act of watching, they're distinguishing themselves from the doomed majority. The feeling of being one of the few who see while the crowd sleep is already deep and almost addictively pleasant, and the price for experiencing this feeling is literally zero, because all you need to do to experience it is keep watching the video. Third, present the solution, but make sure that this solution feels exclusive, urgent, and racing against time. Because urgency functions like a fuse bound to dynamite in the human decision-making mechanism. It eliminates the distance between impulse and action, and this isn't a metaphor, it's a documented neurological process. When the brain is under acute stress, it releases cortisol, and this substance actively suppresses activity in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for evaluating long-term consequences and detecting manipulation. So a person watching a video about an impending financial collapse has demonstrably lower critical thinking capacity, measurable in biological terms, compared to before they hit play. And the people making these videos understand this without ever reading a single article on stress neurobiology. They understand it because they follow their analytics. They see how thumbnails with red arrows get clicked more often than ones with green arrows. They watch subscription conversions spike during crisis weeks and drop during calm periods, and they optimize accordingly. Every word choice, every pause, every graph placed at exactly the right moment is the product of hundreds of hours of data telling them what keeps frightened people watching and what makes frightened people spend money. Now we need to talk about the victims because the word victim requires some sensitivity here, since people who lose money following fear-based financial content are generally not naive, not uneducated, not lacking in financial literacy. And this is nearly the untold part of the story, because the comfortable narrative, the one that makes everyone feel safe, is that only naive people fall into these traps. People who don't do research, people who already make bad financial decisions. But the data tells a much more disturbing story. A person who liquidates a solid long-term portfolio at the bottom of a collapse and moves into what the fear video recommends is almost always someone who has been financially responsible for decades. Someone with real savings worth protecting, someone who seeks information beyond the evening news, and this sophistication, this quality that should be a defense, becomes the exploited weakness. Someone with nothing to lose has no fear of loss. The fear of financial devastation grows in direct proportion to the amount you've managed to accumulate. So the people most carefully targeted by fear-based content are the ones doing everything right. The people contributing to retirement accounts for 30 years, keeping their spending below their income, forgoing instant gratification, taking responsibility, people doing everything the personal finance books say to do. And then in 1 week of crisis media consumption, they lose a meaningful portion of it. Consider how this looks in practice. An elderly retired teacher. Not young, not reckless, not someone who would be described as a speculator, built an index fund portfolio over 30 years. Not rich, but secure. And this security is the product of extraordinary discipline sustained over a lifetime. Then a real crisis breaks. A crisis that is objectively real and objectively serious. And in the midst of this crisis, they encounter a video with graphs, historical data, and urgent authoritative tone, telling them that the financial system is about to undergo fundamental change, that the assets they own are particularly vulnerable against this backdrop, and that a window closing rapidly is still open. And they act. They call their broker and liquidate positions they've held for 20 years and transfer the proceeds into what the video positions as a safe harbor. And 18 months later, the market has recovered, and the prophesied disaster either never happened or happened in a way bearing no resemblance to the prediction. They face a permanent loss of wealth that no future compound interest will recover because they're retired. The clock on compound interest has stopped, and what they sold from the bottom is now worth double what they sold it for. This story is not hypothetical. Versions of it have been documented after every major market crisis of the last 50 years by institutions ranging from FINRA to the Brookings Institution to university departments of behavioral finance trying to understand why intelligent people make terrible financial decisions under stress. And the answer is consistently not a lack of intelligence, but the presence of fear presented with authority and specificity that invalidates decades of accumulated wisdom. And while that retired teacher is counting losses, what's happening on the other side of that transaction? The channel that told them to sell has already published 17 new videos. Some are about the next crisis, some are quietly repositioning themselves to make last year's predictions look more accurate than they were. None of them include an accounting of advice that didn't work, because there is no legal, social, or algorithmic mechanism that requires it. A credentialed financial advisor who gave advice that destroyed a client's retirement savings faces regulatory consequences, potential legal sanctions, reputational damage that could end their career. A content creator who frames the same advice as personal opinion and entertainment and adds a 2-second disclaimer at the end of the video stating that none of this constitutes financial advice operates in a legal space where the damage they cause is completely externalized. The losses fall to the viewer. The subscription revenue from the week they were most frightened remains with the content creator. And the most corroding aspect of this arrangement is that it's not hidden. The disclaimer is real. The terms of service are real. The legal framework distinguishing advice from content is real and was not designed in bad faith. It was designed to protect free speech and journalistic commentary. And it does so with extraordinary efficiency to enable a functioning business that profits from others' financial fear but assumes none of the consequences when that fear leads to bad decisions. To understand how ancient this model is, how deeply embedded it is in the structure of financial media, you need to remember what happened after the 1929 crash. The collapse of Samuel Insull's utility empire, one of the most famous businessmen of the era, took the savings of hundreds of thousands of small investors with it. And in the years that followed, a new sector formed around the wreckage: newsletters, radio broadcasts, and self-published financial guides promising to explain what really happened, who knew it, and how a smart reader could protect themselves from the next inevitable collapse. And these publications weren't selling information. They were selling the feeling of being informed, which is a completely different product. And they were selling it to people who had just been brutally reminded of what it felt like to be uninformed. That made them emotionally ready to spend money on anything that made them feel both financially depleted and protected. And if you read those publications today, you'll find not just a familiar structure, but in some cases nearly identical language. The same division between the knowing minority and the ignorant majority, the same urgent timeline, the same list of asset trades presented as salvation, the same compliment directed to the reader or viewer for being intelligent enough to seek out this information, and just beneath the surface, the same business model. Because the bulletins of the 1930s were subscription products, and today's YouTube channels are subscription products, and in both cases, what you're subscribing to is not financial analysis. It's the ongoing management of financial anxiety. The promise that as long as you keep paying and keep watching, you'll be among those who see what's coming before it arrives. The reason this model has survived over a century of changing media formats from printed leaflets to radio, cable television, podcasts, and short-form video is not because viewers across all these decades have been uniquely easy to deceive. That explanation is not merely factually wrong, it's a profound disrespect to the millions of intelligent people affected. The reason it survives is that the fear of financial devastation is one of the most rational fears a person can carry. It's not irrational to be frightened of losing your savings. It's not paranoia to wonder whether a geopolitical crisis will affect your retirement. These are reasonable concerns carried by reasonable people in a world where financial disaster happens to real people in real ways all the time. And the predatory genius of fear-based financial content lies precisely in positioning itself at the intersection of reasonable anxiety and emotional vulnerability, offering the appearance of expertise and the comfort of having a plan at exactly the moment a person most needs both. And it does this with sufficient real data and sufficient real historical reference that skepticism begins to look like an irrational position. When someone shows you graphs of the 1929 crash, the 1973 oil shock, and the 2008 financial crisis and tells you another one is coming, they're not lying. Something resembling that graph will happen again. Markets really do crash. Geopolitical events really do destroy wealth. Fear is justified. And this justification is the foundation everything is built on, because you can't sell protection from an imaginary threat. The threat has to be real enough to terrify, and real enough to terrify means a person watching the video can't easily ignore it. So the only available responses are panic or the calm that comes with paying for a plan. And the plan, coincidentally, is available in the description below, and so the machine continues to run. A new crisis breaks, thumbnails turn red, titles are written in all caps, comment sections fill with people finally saying they understand, that they're grateful that they've subscribed, and these comments are not fake. These people really do feel informed and protected, and this feeling, however real it is the product being sold, manufactured from their own fears and sold back to them at a profit margin. And the market for it, as long as it continues to produce the crises that feed it, which is to say forever, will never close.